this video, I'll show you how to make this shirt. The front has 2 bust darts, 2 waist darts in the back, a front placket with buttons, and a yoke with pleated flounce. The sleeves are just straight sleeves with pleated flounces on the ends. No collar, just a round collar. I made a pleating board and I used the pleating board to create the pleats. The pattern pieces are the front and the back, the sleeve, the pleats for the sleeve, the back yoke and the front yoke, and the pleats for the neck, the yoke part, and a placket. I pinned and I laid out my fabric pieces and pinned them to the fabric. The back is on the fold, and the front yoke, there's 4 pieces, so 2 and 2. Everything else is 2 pieces. And for the ruffle parts, I'm gonna cut them separately, folding my fabric for a better layout so that I don't waste too much fabric. The next step is to mark all the pattern pieces, the notches. So the way I do it is I just cut the notch on the pattern piece and then I trace it onto the fabric on the wrong side. And for my darts, I do the same thing. I just cut it, fold it, and then trace it onto the fabric. And with the dart, the same way. And the back, I'm going to trace the dart and the square here at the neck, because this is going to be a pivot point. And then when I'm sewing it, I'm going to make a slit diagonal right to the point there so that I can make it straight. And for the back, the only thing that I have to mark is the center, and this fabric creases nicely, so I just make a crease so that the center is marked. It's just one less mark I have to worry about. And then on the sleeve, I just marked the back. Put a little B there and a little B there because it does have a front and a back. Now that I have everything marked, I'm going to start the preparations for sewing. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do all my serge edges that I need to do. So on the sleeve pleats, I'm going to serge along the bottom edge and then fold it up to make the hem. For the neck plackets, I'm going to serge all the way around the sides, the one end, and up on the sides again, and then hem it along along the 3 sides. And I'm going to do that for each one. And also the placket, I'm going to serge along the one edge. Only one edge, the long edge. Here are the pieces, the sleeve ruffles, serged and hemmed on the bottom edge only, and the neck ruffles serged and hemmed along the sides, the long edge and the top, and then the placket serged on the one side only. We're gonna put the placket to the side. The next step is to make the pleats. You can either mark them and make the pleats by hand, and the other option is to use a pleating board. I made a pleating board out of freezer paper, and the way I'm going to use this is I'm going to start here at the very end and then push the pleats inside to start. I'm just sort of pinning them at the beginning here. Let me just turn it around because it's easier for me. And you just push the fabric into each pleat and fold it and keep pushing the fabric in and fold it. And pay attention to this, the hem edge. Make sure that it's nice and even across. So you get the idea, and as I'm doing this, I'm pressing it. For the long ones, you do the same thing. And this one, we start the pleat at a quarter inch and keep pleating it. And then when you get to the end where there's still going to be fabric left, we'll just pull it out of the pleating board and continue. Start with the last pleat that you made and then continue pleating. So this is my first pleats for the sleeve, and I just sort of did every third like this, ironed, and then kept going just to make it nice and even. It's hard if you do them all at one time. Then once they're cooled down, just pull them out and you have your pleated piece. And I'm just gonna arrange them and give them one last press. And after I do that, I'll make a basting stitch just to keep them together. The piece is all pleated with the basting stitch, and don't make the basting stitch at the very top, just to give it a little wiggle room in case you need to size it a little bit better. So we're going to put this to the side. I'm going to start by sewing the darts. So I'm going to sew the front dart, the back darts, and after sewing the darts, I'm going to attach the front to the back at the shoulder. And I'm going to do the same thing with the facing and the yoke. Attach the front facing at the shoulders and do the same thing with the yoke. On the facing, I serged along the outer edge of the yoke. So we'll put this to the side. I did my shoulders on the front and serged the darts and the shoulders. And on the yoke, you don't have to serge this. It's optional because that's going to be covered by the facing. The next step to prepare the bodice is I did a stay stitch along the armhole, along the front, And I also did stay stitch here. So later on when I cut into that corner, when I do a snip there to attach the yoke, I know exactly where to do it, and it kind of stabilizes the fabric. So I'm gonna take my yoke piece, the one that is not finished along the edges, and I'm going to sew it along the bottom. First I'm going to match my center seams. So right sides facing, I'm going to match and here I'm going to sew from the very end, from this end where the corner starts. I'm just gonna mark it here. So from this point to this point, I'm gonna have this seam over here like this, making sure that I leave the sides, the 1/4 inch on each side without sewing. So just here to here. I also want to mention that when I do the stay stitching, I do it a little bit further away from the actual stitch line so that I don't have to remove those stitches. And as you can see, I did that here. The actual seam allowance is 1/4 inch, but these are the 2 important points to make sure that you leave this open. So now I'm going to pin the ruffle to the front and the back side. And here we're also going to leave the 1/4 inch seam, which is where the placket is going to be attached. So I'm marking that. So I'm starting my pleat from this point, and I'm going to pin it all the way up to this corner here. And then when you're pinning your pleats, make sure that you do the right side facing up. So I'm going to start pinning it to the edge here, leaving the 1/4 inch seam allowance open. I'm just going to pin it around and pin it here. It's going to be like, this is the imagine there's a line here. You're going to pin it at that line where the seam is. So here. And just match your edges. Make sure your shoulder seam is facing towards the back. And now that I have that pinned, I'm going to start pinning the side of the yoke. And this is where we need to clip. I'm clipping the corner of the bodice here. Clip it only to the corner of the seam, but make sure you don't clip into the seam, and make sure you're clipping only on the bodice side. You're not clipping any of the other layers. So just to that very corner where you ended your stitching, clip it. And then I'm going to clip the curve here where I did my stay stitching, so that can go around the yoke. And I'm only clipping on the bodice fabric, nothing else. Now we're going to take this here, this corner here, flip it 90 degrees. All the way around. And you're going to get something like this. So this corner here is going to make like a little pleat here. And then you're going to start pinning on that corner. And I'm using the same pins from that I use for the pleats. Match your shoulder seams. And just make sure that all the fabric here is matching, all the seams are matching. The trickiest part is this little curve here, because you're gonna curve this, the very end should be aligned with the front. So I always pin that one first. It's easier. And then match your notches. This one to this one. It looks like I didn't make the notch on my, oh, I erased it when I pressed it accidentally. So don't do, if you're using a heat erasable, don't iron these pieces or mark them again after. But it doesn't matter because it matches as long as you're matching the ends. So this is what you should end up with. And when I start it, I'm going to start it at this very end so that I can catch this seam right away. And I usually place the flat side towards the bottom and just sew it along 1/4 of an inch seam. Once you've sewn that seam, you should end up with something like this. And the corner there should be nice and straight. Now you can take your basting stitch off of the ruffle so it sits nicely. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side, and after that press it. That both flounces are attached, we're gonna sew the facing onto the neck opening and sew it along the neck opening only, right sides facing each other. Now that the neck is sewn, just trim it. I usually just trim it in half, or you can clip it, whatever you're more comfortable doing. And we're gonna flip it over like so. And then I'm also going to trim the inside here and clip the corners. And after I do that and press it, I will top stitch along the yoke. This is the result we want when doing the top stitching. I used a top stitch foot, sort it all the way around. And then you're catching the facing. So bring out your plackets and we're gonna sew them to the edges. So I'm matching them from the bottom. And then at the top, you should have a 1/4 inch seam. You should have a 1/4 inch extending from the top of the neck. And we'll do the same thing for the other side. Now that the placket is attached, don't do any trimming yet. Fold the placket back on itself, right sides facing each other. You're gonna sew along this edge right here, straight across. That's gonna form the facing. I'm going to trim the outer corner of the placket and just trim a little bit on the top. And the reason I do this is so that fuzzies don't stick out over here. You can trim this part as well, but don't trim the placket. Like this side of the placket, leave it alone. And you don't have to trim too much, it's just to get rid of all those hanging threads. And then we're gonna take that placket and flip it around. And this is here where we want to make sure that there's no thread sticking out or anything. So sort of push that in to cover it completely. And just hold it on with a pin. Because now we're just gonna pin our placket like that and pin it down, hiding the seam. The seam is going to be towards the inside. And then do the top stitch along here, along the placket. The plackets are done. We're going to move on to the sleeves. So before I start attaching the sleeves, I'm gonna do a gathering stitch along the top here, just to ease to make little gathers, very, very tiny gathers to fit the sleeve in. And then I'm going to also attach the bottom part of the flounce, right sides to right sides. Make sure you have enough at the end here so that you can do the side seam, 1/4 inch. And that's one of the reasons why I don't do the basting stitch all the way at the end, because you know sometimes you just have to adjust this. Like right here, I want to make sure that my pleat doesn't end where I'm going to do the side seam here as well. So I'm going to attach that and do the same thing for the other side. Once you've prepared your sleeves, they should look like this. I attached the flounce, serged it, and then did a top stitch on both sides. And I did a gathering stitch here so that I can set the sleeve in. So once again, we can do our little clip our curves. Pull my gathering thread, just it's barely gathered. When you sew it on, it shouldn't be gathered at all. This is just to help ease it in. When you're sewing, the pleats will go towards the inside and the outside will be sort of like this. So I'm going to find my back. This is the back to the back. And I usually start pinning at the corners. And then just ease it in till I got it all pinned up. And after I sew this sleeve, I'm going to do a zigzag stitch because it's because of the curve, it's kind of hard to put it in through the serger. Now the sleeves are all done. And what I did is I used the zigzag stitch that looks like a serge, first on the sleeve and then on the armhole, and then I attached them together so I don't have to worry about finishing the sleeves. Next thing, now that we have our sleeves and everything is done, we're just going to close the sides. So match your armholes or your underarm seams. And just pin along. And then we'll just seam the sides and serge them. Do the same thing on the other side. Sides are sewn and serged, and I hid my serger tails here. Now I'm going to serge along the edge and just fold it up to make a little hem, a very tiny hem. And here we go. The shirt is finished. Only thing that I need to do is make the buttonholes and attach the buttons. And iron them to get rid of all the friction pen marks. I hope that if you do try this pattern, you can post pictures. I would love to see pictures of your finished product. Thank you for watching.